Welcome to What the Health? Where anything health is fair game as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan and Angela Turo.
And welcome to another episode of What the Health. I am your host, Dr. Dan Turo. I don't have my co-host Angela with me today because we have another special guest that we're going to get to in just 1 second. But before we do that, as with everything, our disclaimer, this information is for your information only. Never treat, we don't treat, diagnose, do anything with any sort of diseases. Please talk to your trusted healthcare professional before making any healthcare changes in your life. And if you are looking for a good health care professional in your area, never hesitate to reach out. So with that being said, this is a wonderful friend, probably one of my wife's best friends since chiropractic school. We go way back. Dr. Melissa Matthews out of Guntersville, Alabama, and she is going to be sharing her experience through the birth process, a little bit of her own story, and talking about helping patients through the perinatal care paradigm, meaning what you do before, during, and after the birth process, and how that really sets you up for success or possibly failure, depending on what you're implementing. So we are going to jump right into it. Dr. Melissa, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I love talking about this stuff and just kind of dive right in like this. The stuff that we talked about or will talk about literally saved my life. So if I can help someone else not go down the road that I went, I'm all for it. That's what I'm here to share. So let's go.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously your background is a chiropractor. You also see a lot of horses. We were talking about that a little bit right before we got on here. And I just love, there's a lot of, videos that go around the internet now, right? Different, chiropractors adjusting different animals. I just got, I'm sure you as an animal chiropractor, patients send you all sorts of videos like, oh, we saw this online. I got the giraffe one that was going around recently, sent to me like 3 times. Yeah. So, but talk to me about what sparked your passion to get into chiropractic care.
Wow. That, I think I'm a rarity now that I've been in this a little bit, literally since I was 2 weeks old. I'm one of those like rare people. My parents were not chiropractors. Actually, my mom is a nurse, but I call her a hippie nurse.
Nice.
She kind of saw the medical side of things and she swore she would never actually end up a patient.
Yeah. And
so she did all things kind of hippie and natural. Like I remember that my views have now changed, but I thought this was like not how you should raise children was giving them good quality vitamins and filtered water, not allowing Kool-Aid at an early age. I was like, this is not a normal childhood in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Now I'm grateful for that. So I was just raised in that paradigm. I knew early on, again, I rode horses since I knew what a horse was. And I knew early on, you went to the chiropractor if you fell off your horse or if you were sick. That was just the education. Yeah. And then through life, I realized, oh, I'm kind of a weird person because I remember being at a job and it was a very busy, very stressful job. We were on the road 6.5 days, pretty much worked. And I was sick and like couldn't get over this. And my boss was like, well, have you taken anything for this? And I was like, I knew I just needed rest and an adjustment, but we were out of town. I was like, well, I've taken my vitamins and I've drank extra water. What am I supposed to take? Like, it just didn't even cross my mind of all the over-the-counter things you can take. So that's when I was like, oh, I might be a little different, might be a little weird. And then moving forward, chiropractic care has just always been in my life. And then the chiropractor I went to when I was in high school was literally across the high school from me. So I would see him get dropped off in the morning, go get adjusted, and go to school. And then eventually I worked as a CA in that office. And when I graduated high school, I knew I was going to be a chiropractor, but then life kind of happened, and then university was weird and all the sciences. I was like, let's not do this. But then working in that office, I remember this is like what changed my life. Literally poop. Was I was at a screening event, and a young mom came up to me and she's like, hey, can chiropractic help with constipation? I was like, I'm like, of course, chiropractic can help with like everything. So she came into the office. Her 5-year-old every morning needed Metamucil to have a bowel movement. That was her life. This is what they were dealing with. Started getting adjusted. Poop happened normally. So literally, again, I'm chiropractic because of poop.
Yep. Healthy, normal response.
Yes. And then the mom also had a 1.5-year-old son, and he was about to start his 3rd asthma medication at 1.5 years.
Wow.
So you know where this story is going. Got the child under care. That child no longer needed medications for asthma.
Yeah.
Total life change in that family. I lost count of how many kids that mom referred into that office. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I have got to go do this.
Yeah.
So I'm from Canada, so going to Atlanta is a long way and kind of an expensive way to go to school. But I packed up my 2 suitcases and a backpack and hopped on a plane to Atlanta shortly after that. And
the rest is history.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you were ingrained in this from a very young age. So that was your norm. So it was almost like an awakening experience when someone was, coming at it from a medical perspective, and, because that was completely against what you knew. And so it's like, well, I've never taken a medication for anything. Kids should poop regularly. They shouldn't need asthma medication, from a very young age. Again, as we always say, medicine has a time and a place, but not when you're trying to promote health and well-being. So then that got you, let's fast forward a little bit. Well, and again, let me back up because, in looking over the notes that you sent me, you mentioned how one thing that blew my mind is that our kids' generation is the first generation over the past several that they're actually going to see a decreased life expectancy compared to us. Right? Is that's how it was portrayed. So our kids, on average are going to actually have a lower life expectancy than our generation, which means that we're seeing a massive decline, in our health and well-being. So can you talk a little bit about like what you're seeing going on and why that statistic, might be out there?
Yes. Wow. You just opened a whole can of worms, and it can go down so many different rabbit holes. So I'll keep it focused to what I do and the work that I do. So the work that I do is preconception. Is basically, I want these parents that are preparing to bring a child into the world to be as healthy as possible, so that when that child's brought into the world, that they're passing on the best qualities, the healthy qualities, the healthiest versions of themselves into this child, and therefore hopefully helping to change that statistic. As well as if you have been a parent for any length of time, you know how just if you haven't really prepared and done the work to step into that role, it can really mentally, physically, emotionally damage you. Yeah. And you don't intend for that to happen, but that's kind of where we're going to go with this talk a little bit about why that is.
So I love this idea of preparation, right? This being proactive to, stepping into a role as a parent, because we study so many other things in our life, right? We study, our degrees, we study math, science, reading. We study, how do we do, different things. And again, today's day and age, it's amazing that you've got YouTube at your fingertips and, you can pretty much become a DIYer of just about anything within reason. But a lot of us just like, we either it was a surprise or we were planning on becoming parents, but just had no idea what we were getting into. So talk about, some of the qualities, because you mentioned, why is it important to be healthy before even conceiving a child? Like what is it that's getting passed on? And I have a reason that I'm asking that, because I just read a statistic recently about adrenal glands and what moms do from when their adrenals are sucked out with the baby. But why is it important preparation, both mom and dad, preconception, to be as healthy as possible?
Yes. And again, the preparation, one of the analogies I love to use is how when you and, for example, when you and Aaron got married, how long did you plan for that wedding and prepare for that wedding? And then how much money also did you spend as you prepare to spend the rest of your lives together? Usually on average, you're planning for about 10 months or a year or longer.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, kept becoming parents, sometimes it's just hey, and that's exactly what happened with the first child.
Happy surprise, or you were planning and then said, okay, now we're going to do it.
Yeah, that was, second one was kind of a happy surprise, and first one was like, well, let's have a child, and that's what brought me to this work. So the importance of, thankfully, it's coming out a lot more of the male's responsibility and the genetic expression that he brings to the child. He's actually 60% responsible for the genetic expression of the child. So that's just one of the reasons of kind of, hey, dad, you have such an investment in this child's health and from the start. So bring your A game, dude. As well as it's the sperm that builds the placenta. Because here as a woman, I kind of can't just be like, all right, body, let's create a placenta. Let's create another organ, a new organ. No, not going to happen no matter how hard I try. And that placenta, the health of that determines how the pregnancy is going to go for the woman, whether they're going to be symptom free and join, or if they're going to experience all the morning sickness, all of the just ickness factor. And again, my two kids are a tale of, with my firstborn, it was like, well, let's just get pregnant. Okay, that happened. Yes, I experienced some morning sickness and whatever, not so great. Second child, my husband did some preconception work, and I did not experience any of those negative symptoms. It was an awesome rockin' pregnancy, and he came out over 10 pounds, so it was fun. And then, there's so much more that goes into that, but that's just some of the fun facts right off the top of my head.
Well, that's really neat, because I don't know if I've ever heard it expressed that way, in terms of the sperm being responsible for the health, in creation and building of the placenta. So, and again, that's so important for those of us who aren't in the healthcare world. The placenta is really what feeds, right? Has that blood barrier between mom and baby, and really feeds and houses a lot of nutrients to be able to grow that baby. So, that's so interesting. So talk about this genetic expression, right? We all have a certain number of genes, but the old theory was, you have a gene and, and that gene is expressed, and either it's on or it's off. But now with this genetic expression, this idea of epigenetics, our environment has the ability to turn on and off genes. Yes. So when you're talking about, the men and women getting prepped for birth, we're looking at how are certain genes turn on, healthy expressive genes turned on, versus, how are maybe, not so healthy, adaptive mutated genes turned off, when we practice, healthy lifestyle habits. So can you talk, you mentioned, what your husband Jubal, went through in terms of, some of the pre-birth work that he did. So what would that look like for men? And then we can talk about the women afterwards.
Yeah, you totally hit it on the nail on the head. It is about the environment, and environment drives what the genetic expression is going to be. So we're going to rock and roll into the protocol, and it's pretty similar for both male and female. Again, some tweaking of various things, but really the basis even of this preconception work is at the core of what builds a healthy human and what we need. So there's 8 essentials. First one being chiropractic, having that brain, body, the nervous system communication.
Excellent.
Yes. And the second one, and this is a whole other science, is proper glycosylation. Oh, so that is how to explain that is how chiropractic is the brain talking to body, body talking to the brain. Glycosylation is the cell talking to cell, so cellular communication at that level. And we want healthy cell talking and communicating with other healthy cell. So that comes in the form of taking glycans, and that's one of my favorite supplements. And again, there's a whole science on that.
Without getting too much into it, okay, what would, specific vitamin glycans, what, does it come from a certain food source? When you say glycans, help our audience understand what you mean by that.
Yes. So it does come in food sources. You're kind of catching me off guard. I'd have to look it up again. I think like broccoli is one of them. Again, coming from mostly vegetables, probably cruciferous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vegetables. But of course, the easiest way is to take a supplement. And that was something that really changed for me, changed in my mind was, again, I've grown up in this chiropractic paradigm. I was always healthy. I didn't have any symptoms. So I didn't necessarily think to take supplements, because in my mind, how it had always sort of been was, well, if you have X symptom, then take Y supplement. And I was like, but again, we're just chasing symptoms and just like kind of putting a Band-Aid of, oh, well, you have this, so take this.
Yeah, you're going from taking medication for a symptom and just substituting it for supplementation, right? Yeah. It's like, I have X symptom, I'm going to take X supplement.
And I never really had symptoms. So I was like, well, I guess I just don't have to take anything. Then I learned, basically it comes down to like how crappy our food supply is, that even if you eat the best, cleanest diet, you still need to supplement it with essential nutrients.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key things. That's, again, one of the other 8 essentials of this protocol. And that's what I'm able to sit down with and be like, okay, yes, you need to take, omegas and iodine and selenium and multivitamin, even a multivitamin. I'm like, okay, at bare minimum, like everyone should at least be on a quality multivitamin, because again, our food supply. And again, that's a whole other rabbit hole and a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's such a good point, because we always talk about that, and my sister, who works as part of our team, as a, salutogenic specialist. So, lifestyle specialist, we always talk about, we want to get our nutrients as much as we can through our healthy food supply. But as you just mentioned, it is so difficult to actually get, the good, healthy sources. Our food is not what it was, 100 years ago. And, again, so much of it is chemically processed. A lot of that is to, help extend shelf life. And we always talk talk about if you extend the shelf life of a product on the shelf, it's going to be extended in your body, right? Like those chemicals end up in your system, and they end up in your endocrine organs. So you have hormonal imbalances. They can be stored in your fat cells. We've all heard of it, situations of someone, starting to diet and starting to lose weight. And then that person ends up having like a massive heart attack or a stroke, right? And, I think so much of that can be related to, toxins that are stored in liver and fat cells, that then get released out into the system. And we have this detrimental effect. So again, going back to such a good point of, doing a lot of this work long before you ever are thinking about, about having children. But part of that challenge, though, is, right, we're really capable of having children as early as, 16 years old. But, what average 16-year-old is thinking about, about taking care of themselves. It's hard enough to tell a 16-year-old, hey, don't drink that soda and drink some water, right? But to then relate it to, hey, this has an impact not just on you now, but, your future family, if that's what, you choose to do. So sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. So let's bring it.
Even coming to the 16-year-old, this is for the work that I do and for what I've learned, like I love talking to the teens or the early 20s, especially if they've never had a regular cycle or a continuous bleed, or their hormones are just like out of whack. Literally had friends send in one of their friends. They're like, I don't know what's going on with her, but please fix her because she's not the same loving friend that we know. She's like we got her on protocol, hormones regulated. She did great. Friends are like, oh my gosh, thank you. She's back.
She's back to the way yeah.
Yeah. So, and educating that on an early, so that, really, if you have hormonal issues at, really any age, but especially young, like kind of the only Band-Aid they have for you is, well, here, take the pill, which has other detrimental effects.
Yeah.
So you might be on a pill for 10, 15 years and then the negative depletion that happens with that. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm married. I want to start a family, but your body has never had a regular normal cycle. It doesn't know what the normal hormonal flow is. And no wonder more and more families are having issues with fertility.
Yeah, so we're seeing significant increase in infertility rates, right? Yeah. So it's getting harder and harder for moms and dads who want to have children to actually get pregnant, and I'm sure that's one of a massive number of factors that you talk about, right? But this idea that, hey, you're having an abnormal cycle, or or you're cramping really bad, here, just go on this this hormone, this birth control pill. And wow, so your body never learns to have a normal, menstrual cycle, and how important that is, in the female anatomy to be able to, go through that normal healthy cycle. Just like, just like we mentioned, my wife always gets a little, not miffed, but I talk about birth being as natural as pooping, right? Doesn't happen as often, but, and there's a lot more factors that go into it. But if we think about it, it's it should be in a normal, healthy state. Birthing is as normal as going to the bathroom, right? Your body was designed to do it. And so, we are artificially, societally blocking that from an extremely young age. And so so you get the opportunity to talk to, patients, men, but, a lot of women too, of, hey, this is what normal should look like. Yes. And there's unfortunately not a lot of normal and healthy scenarios out there. So, fantastic information, Dr. Melissa. So let's go back and review real quick. So you talked about, obviously chiropractic from, healthy spine and nervous system function, nervous system controls and coordinates absolutely everything. So making sure that your, spine is aligned and moving. That's, point number one. And then you talked about the glycans, which a lot of that comes from, normal healthy diet, but, because of our poor diet, quality, we need to add, certain supplementation. So what's the next step step. And first, I don't even think we mentioned what this protocol is that you use. So, you use something called the Shafer Protocol, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got into the Shafer Protocol because of your difficult, did you have a difficult first or second, but fill me in on that. How did you come to, through your personal story, how did you come to the Shafer Protocol and start studying and implementing that in your practice?
Yeah. So conceiving both boys. So I have two boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And it was my 5-year-old that brought me to this work. Conception, no problem. He's a Disney World souvenir, fun times. So, and, experienced some morning sickness, like pregnancy was okay. It was more of like the typical, anyways, but moving forward, I'm sitting in continuing ed. He's about a year old, and postpartum journey was rough for me. But again, when you're kind of in it, you just kind of go through it and you think it's normal. And there I am sitting in class going a year through this of now I know, looking back, postpartum depression. But this professor, this doctor, Dr. Shafer, brought up a word that I'd never heard before, was postpartum depletion. And what she explained suddenly made sense for all of my symptoms. And again, I'm not a symptom chasing person, but I was miserable. Like, there was a moment, trigger warning. My husband was leaving for work and I'm holding our baby and I'm just like, honey, I know where the gun is. I'm just letting you know, like, things are bad. Yeah. So this is why I take this work so serious. Is I had those intrusive thoughts. Like, I did not want to be a mother to my son. And that the joy was robbed. So I learned about postpartum depletion, where it comes down to, if you've already entered a pregnancy in a depleted state, nutritionally, of course, also emotionally, spiritually, physically, how much harder a time that makes for pregnancy and postpartum, but then rolling into postpartum, how depleting that is. If you've spent 9 months growing this baby, the baby's taking all the good things from you. And now if you're having a nursing relationship with that child, they're further depleting you. And yes, I did exclusively breastfeed, so he was also taking everything from me there. Again, being someone that, I took my prenatal. Now I know differently, so I thought it was quality at the time, but now I know. And then I just was like, this is it. This answers everything. And that was my moment. I'm like, I started on the protocol, started to get myself healthier, build up my nutritional supplies, and total life change. Like, I've not had those intrusive thoughts. I have a family history of depression. I have overcome that. I have beat that. Depression in my family line stops with me. My children will not go down that path because of the work my husband and I have done. That too is one of the powers of this protocol, is breaking those family curses.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, because you're absolutely right. People need to know about that. And it makes perfect sense, right? Because all of our cells, we learn about, in chiropractic school, and we learn as health professionals that, our bodies, restore themselves, right? We're self-healing, self-regulating. And that means, our cells go through a natural, normal process of apoptosis, meaning the old damaged ones start to die off and then new ones need to be replaced. But if you don't have a good, healthy building block, right? If all you have is like sand bricks to build your foundation of your house, well, the first rain that comes along, it's going to wash your house away, right? So, but if you've got good, strong, strongest concrete, and you can lay that foundation right with rebar and all that, well, now you're going to have a good foundation to build upon. And, I'm getting chills just, thinking about this, but it's like how many, women and men have no idea the importance of what they put into their body, not just physically and how they feel, right? But again, the mental emotional aspect that you just hit on, it's just kind of mind blowing, how much that mental emotional state is grounded in the physicalness of what we put into our system, right? So thank you for sharing that. So you made that change and noticed how long did it take from the time you started the protocol until you noticed some pretty significant changes in your mental emotional health?
It didn't take long. And this and can appreciate, like, there is no end to health. And so you just continue to head in that direction. And I look back, so I've been doing this about 4 years now. And like every year I'm just leveling up in health and going to that next level, mental clarity, whatever life brings to me, of going through it, changed and for the better. Sorry, that's rambling, but I know you can sum that up and explain that better.
No.
That health projection.
Yeah. And that's what, cause I've got we have a small book that I wrote for the office a few years ago, but, it's really just an educational piece of, just helping people understand the basics of what it is we do. And I started, signing it, I'm so happy to be a part of your health journey, right? Because so many times we think of health as a destination, and it's like, oh, I'm going to get there. And then what? You're just going to stop doing what you're doing? Like, no, right. It's like, everyone, we're taught from a young age, as soon as your teeth come in, let's brush those teeth because it's a healthy practice. Right. That's what this whole concept of like, oh, I'm going to get fixed by my chiropractor and I'm going to start going. Well, it's like, well, how long do you want, good, healthy nervous system, right. Communication? It's like, do you want that for the rest of your life? Well, then you're going to come in and get checked. Doesn't mean we're going to adjust you the same way every time or even adjust you every time, but you're going to get checked. How often are you going to eat your healthy fruits and vegetables or, take your supplements, right? As long as you want to continue on that health journey, because either you're growing, you're getting stronger, you're adapting, or you're slowly withering and, depleting. I love that word. You're slowly depleting, your system. And again, our body has an amazing ability to adapt and be healthy. But eventually we reach a point where, that adaptation is going to be greatly interfered with, based on the level of, of the foundation that we have. So what else? So what are some of the other, steps? You mentioned 8, first one being the chiropractic care, second one being the glycans. So what else? What are some of the other steps in this Shafer protocol that you use?
Love it, because you really can start anywhere, because we've talked about it. So many of them are lifestyle habits. So hydration, proper hydration. And my one tip with that is I love gel water. Are you familiar with that term? I'm sure you.
Fill me in on it. I might have heard it a couple different ways, but no, please fill me in.
Well, it's best how to describe it is thinking like how a cactus in the desert is able to survive on so little water. It's able to take whatever water it can get and turn it into essentially gel water so it can hold on to it. So a whole science thing to that. But the simplest thing is you take your water bottle, throw in a little pinch of Himalayan salt, and I like frozen fruits or vegetables because they're in my freezer. They're picked at right peakness. They're great. Can also throw in fresh, but I like frozen. Throw it in your water. There you go. Congrats, you made gel water.
Nice.
What that's going to do is it's going to properly hydrate your cells, as well as like if you've ever had someone be like, hey, increase your water intake, and all you're doing is peeing every 5 minutes. This will help that. It'll actually keep the water in the cells where it needs to be.
Yeah, the salt concentration, right, helps drive the water into the cell rather than just going through your, stay in your bloodstream and then filtered out by the kidneys and then it's out the bladder before you even have a chance to hang on to it. No, great point. So I don't think I've ever heard it termed gel water, but yeah, we talk all the time about the importance of, salts and I love this time of year too, as we get a little hotter.
Yes.
You guys have probably been a little hotter than we have. You're a month or two ahead, right? Down in Alabama. But yeah, this time of year, throwing the cucumbers, the watermelon, the blueberries, all those, good healthy fruits into the water, it makes it flavorful. And again, great point of just being able to drive that hydration into the cell, not in the bloodstream. Because if it's in the blood, it doesn't help you. It needs to be in the cell.
And it's also fun. Again, kids teach you so much, right? So when we're down the frozen fruit aisle, I love my kids to go pick out some like weird wild fruits that I might not have even heard of, or, they pick out some great ones. We've had fun with that, like dragon fruit. Love me some dragon fruit, but that's because my kids picked it out of the frozen fruit section. So
Nice.
Have fun with this. Kids are great teachers. So that's 3. Movement. Again, and the basis of this protocol is all driving A1C and vitamin D levels. And that's what this is. So movement, something as simple as just playing with your kids 10 minutes a day, keeping it fun, doing something enjoyable. And a great thing to also, again, help with insulin is after a meal, going for a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Helps you kind of avoid that, oh gosh, I need a nap after having my lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazing point if I can jump in there, because I'm seeing the future of this again, kind of seeing the blend of the biotechnology route. I've seen a lot of patients now, they've got those blood glucose monitors, right?
Yes, love those. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's like they're watching that. And then after a meal, if that blood sugar starts to creep up too high towards going over a threshold level, it actually starts buzzing you and saying, hey, it's time to, do something. So, stop and do some air squats, stop and do some jumping jacks, go take a walk, like do something, because what happens is rather than having that blood sugar continue to spike, you're able to curb that, get your insulin up and curb that blood sugar spike to drive it back below the threshold. And so now, because again, if you get those spikes every day and multiple times a day, that's what drives insulin resistance, which is eventually going to drive diabetes. So if you're able to, start to recognize that, and again, patients are visual, right? So that if they see that spike and they're like, okay, what can I do to curb that spike and bring it back below the threshold? We can curb that A1C level. So great point. So, so movement. So what else do we got? What's
essential nutrients? And that's again, coming back to proper supplementation, realizing food supplies. So that typically involves omegas, vitamin D, selenium, iodine, choline. Love choline to help clean out the liver. Get a good quality multivitamin. And there might be some other ones. Again, black seed oil is awesome for fertility, especially for the male part. There might be some other ones, but those are just kind of like the basics of, if you're a human, you probably need these in your system because you're not getting enough from food supply.
Now, do you ever do any blood testing to determine how much someone should be taking, or do you just have like here's the threshold, here's like, the recommendation, get it in your system?
I love that question. So most of the dosing is based on body weight. And again, it's kind of let's establish a baseline first, because let's face it, someone's in front of you, they're probably depleted. So let's get that baseline. If things are still wonky, and one thing about this protocol is we work in 120-day cycles, because that's the cycle of the egg. So at least give me 120 days. Let's see where we're at. Yes, if we need to do a blood test, we can do that. It's not the driving force of the work that I do. But again, the more information you have, the better it is. But of course, with blood tests, and you can end up chasing symptoms based on where someone is in their cycle of taking the blood work at certain times. And it's really just a picture of that moment, not the whole overall thing, which again, that's where I love where you mentioned the glucose monitor, or even the heart rate variability, the Oura rings, things like that. Anything that gives you moment by moment by moment by moment feedback.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you just said there really quick, but because again, anytime I talk to, patients about nutrition, right, going back to something we said earlier about the medication and symptoms, so many people, they want to start that nutrition supplement and they want to see, immediate results, right? We're all about instant gratification. But when we're talking about building and growing and developing health, it takes time. And you just mentioned something that, again, I'm sure I learned in school and I plugged it away. But the cycle of the egg is 120 days. So talk about that, because when a woman is born, she has all the eggs that, in her ovaries that she could ever, produce. But then those eggs are chosen to go through a cycle. So when you talk about the cycle of the egg in 120 days, can you clarify that a little bit more, for people who are listening?
Right. So when we start on our cycle, we're developing, maturing that egg, and it's going to go through a 120-day journey before it is released. And that's the one that, if you're trying to get pregnant, is going to get ovulated. So, and there's maybe new information or different thoughts on women being born with all their eggs. There's different theories, different science now that says, oh, you actually can continuously make eggs throughout the rest of your life. But again, we're talking about quality. And yes, this comes down to the preconception, and why if I'm sitting with a couple that wants to create a baby, get pregnant, I say, we're not making one that first 120 days because we want quality, and we're building that egg. We're giving that egg all the good stuff it needs. And yeah, it's going to take 120 days to come to fruition.
And that's, I think my point being for you describing that is helping people understand that, like, if you're changing something nutritionally at an absolute minimum, you're talking 3 to 4 months, 4 to 6 months before you, recognize and notice some change. So if someone's starting to work with you, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to start, chiropractic care, and I'm going to start the Shafer Protocol, and I've had infertility challenges for 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to get pregnant next month. No, it's, if you're truly wanting to get down and you're having fertility challenges, you got to look at this as a minimum, probably 6-month process or beyond, right?
Right. And it's really even the first couple months, maybe even the first 3-4 months, is really like getting the habits down of, oh, at this time I take my iodine. Oh, I go for my walk at this time. I mean, I've been doing this 4 years and I'm still like, oh, hey, I'm slacking on that essential. I better get to it. But again, it's a journey. It's a journey, yeah. Progress, not perfection. And I'll have those people that they're maybe a little type A, and they just see it as like a checklist. They're like, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. It's like there's lessons to learn in the process as we gain those good habits and to keep those good habits.
That's fantastic. So we got movement, we got the 120-day cycle. What are the last couple points to the Shafer Protocol? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Right. I'm kind of like, where even are we? So a big piece, and this is where things are a little different, where it's not just a supplement protocol, is the empowerment piece of it, the peer component. And this is where journaling is what I recommend. And some people look at me like, not doing that. No. So easy way to start. I say easy, it takes you 60 seconds, if that, to write down these answers. But again, it's doing it and being intentional about it and taking the time to do it is where the power is. It is in the morning, starting with your question, what are you excited about? And at the end of the day, what are you proud of?
Nice.
That's really where we start.
That's it. And if someone isn't kinesthetic and wants to write it down, could they use like a voice recorder on their phone and just, talk into it or
okay. It's
the exercise of doing it, right? What are you excited about? What are you proud of? I love that.
Right.
I love that.
I think the stat is for every positive thought we have in our head, we've had 76 negative thoughts. So to counteract that, like the stories we tell ourselves, right?
I know, right? And and typically it's right. You just like, we feel like we're in control rather than like surrendering it and like, hey, let's, what, we talk about giving it up to a higher power, right? It's like, you're not as bad as you think you are up here. And, but no, I mean, that's so important. I love those two questions. What are you excited about? What are you proud of? So Dr. Melissa, let's talk about if someone so you met this Dr. Shafer, through your own personal experience and then, started, training and learning it as a healthcare professional so that you could help others. If there are people listening to this and they're having their own fertility challenges or maybe mental emotional stress or any case, could they find a practitioner, in their area? Is there a directory? Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, there is a directory of certified doctors. I'll send that to you.
Okay. Yeah. We can put it as a link.
Yeah.
We can put it as a link. No problem. So how do people get a hold of you if they have more questions, specifically about this? And again, our audience it might be a little bit, small right now, but it's always crazy to hear, who's listening. But if someone wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
One of the best ways, I won't say that I answer it frequently, but I will check it. I'm trying to get more on Instagram. So it's Dr. Melissa Matthews, DC is my handle. That one is more related to the Shafer Protocol work that I do. Again, I'm a busy mom. I can't promise you that like it's there, but I care. It might take me a week to actually see the message, but I will respond. Or you can get in contact through the office, phone, email, whatever, Jubilee Family Chiropractic. That's in Guntersville, Alabama. Yeah, those are probably the best ways.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure those are included in the links down below. Any final words before we jump off? I mean, this is just a review. I mean, I love this concept of, we're having a good, strong, chiropractic foundation with healthy spine and nervous system. We're moving our bodies better. We're getting essential nutrients. We're working that mental, emotional side through journaling, good, healthy hydration through gel water. I mean, any final thoughts for those? And again, thank you for sharing your personal experience, Dr. Melissa, because I think people need to know that, as health professionals, we're human too. And we work just as hard, probably sometimes harder, to make sure that we do our best and we're on this journey. And I know I have had some of my own health challenges over the last, year, close to year now, since I was diagnosed with Lyme and, and had some issues with shingles after that. So it's like, we're health professionals. We're humans too. So, someone listening, I would tell them, don't give up. There's hope to get healthy. Right. But,
right.
But they have to be willing to keep looking and keep working.
It comes down to establishing those simple daily habits and setting simple achievable goals of like, this month, I'm going to focus on getting my gel water in, even 2 glasses of gel water a day. Let's get that in. Okay. Easy. Check. You're going to feel more energized. You're going to feel the results, the success kind of like right away as you get that into your body and you're like, cheers, got that. All right. What's my next step? Okay. I'm going to invest in this supplement. All right. Awesome. Check. And not trying to do it all at once because you might mean well, but you're kind of setting yourself up for failure unless if you're like Superman. But
yeah.
So again, just setting those simple lifestyle daily habits.
Small steps over time equal big results, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's so easy to go into overwhelm if you try and dive in and do, change everything immediately. And, and I think having the support too, I love that you talked a little bit about your husband, Dr. Jubal, but having that support, as a health professional, but more importantly, as a parent, in your partner, makes such a difference, right? I mean, that's, if you don't have that support at home, trying to do everything on your own, nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm. So even do it as a family. Set those goals, do it together. And if you have kids, they're washing their little sponges. Ooh, it's a little humbling if you see some of your bad habits trickling in, but when you see the good habits and the impact it has, rocking and rolling, there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah. And there's no worse feeling when your little one calls you out on something that you're trying to tell them not to do. So,
yes.
Yes. Yeah. I heard it said at one point, there was a colleague of ours. It was we have our children, to really, humble us or, teach us, where we're weak in certain areas of our life. And, man, is that the truth?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. I am Dr. Dan with What the Health podcast. And if any of this information resonated with you, you can reach out to us directly, TuroFamilyChiropractic.com. We'll have the links to Dr. Melissa's website and information down below. But as always, we're here to help people get healthy and stay healthy for a lifetime. Dr. Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This was fun.
Absolutely. We'll do it again soon.
You've been listening to What the Health with Dr. Dan and Angela Turo, brought to you by Turo Family Chiropractic. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.whatthehealth.world.